Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Development Review Board meeting for June 9th. We're going to call the meeting to order with first order of business is roll call. All members are present. We do have Doug on Zoom. Next on the agenda is Jared. Do we need to make any changes?
Not that I'm aware of. I hope you have your minutes in your packets.
Yep, we do.
That's all
Yep.
I was concerned about.
Yep. First public hearing, we're going to open a recessed public hearing for JPI Inc. So I see a lot of faces in the crowd, and for those who haven't been here before, you need to be sworn in for each hearing. We are an on-the-record DRB. So if you're here to speak to this hearing, if you're previously sworn in, you're still sworn in, but if you were not previously sworn in at last month's meeting, you need to be sworn in. So anyone who was not sworn in, please raise your right hand, and I'll swear you guys in. I'm just going to kind of take a little general cut. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we got one on Zoom. Okay. 2, 3. Okay. Good question. Okay. You solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the matter now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury. I do.
I do.
Okay. Thanks, folks. And we only got one microphone. We've got a lot of people who are here for one hearing, so. We're going to try to do our best to not interrupt each other. And I know Leisha took down everyone's names, but if you can say your name when you start talking, that'll make it a lot easier to take the minutes. Who wants to start off telling us about your update?
I'll just introduce myself.
Okay.
In the project. I'm Tom Frawley. I'm president of Summit Distributing. I've been at the Ludlow Shell location since I ran Johnson & Dick's back in the 90s, so a long time. We've been there under Summit Distributing for the last 20 years, so that's our origin. We're a gasoline, C-store, convenience store operator. I have 18 properties in the state of Vermont that we operate, and we lease out some stores, and this one in particular, and you all know our tenant, Mata'ula, who's been running the location for the past 19 years. And we're here to update the board on changes that were made from comments and what we heard from the last meeting, and additional requests for information and clarifications, and hopefully answer any questions the board might have. So I'm going to let our engineer, Hussein Sevenchil, update you on changes we made to plans and things that we provided the board since the last meeting.
Good evening. For the record, Hussein Sevinchki with Freeman Peterson Inc., out of Salem, New Hampshire. We were in front of the board a month ago. We addressed some of your comments as well as Kyle Madash's comments and the fire and police chief comments. I'll just go over the changes we made. You're all in your packet. I believe you all have this set of plans. I'll just go over that. This is, I'll come back to this. Basically, you have an existing conditions plan. Nothing's changed out there other than the fact that, as you're aware, the building has been demoed, and there is some site work that has been done for the fuel tanks, replacement of the fuel tanks, and the dispenser apron out front. This is just a demolition plan. Nothing too exciting there. So this is the site plan. You have a black and white version. This is a color version, just to kind of show you what we've done. The previous plan had some development in this area back here. At the last DRB meeting, we had not received Kyle's comments, but we did receive it like the day after. So we've had discussions with Kyle a few times via email, and he did indicate that we do have to comply with this infill line that's part of the Ludlow flood regulations that came into effect this year. So basically, we established this line. We sent our crew, our surveyors back out there to establish the infill line, which basically is within a 300-foot distance. You can't go any closer to the river, the floodway, than your points. Let me see. So in your packet, sheet 9. I added it to the end. I didn't want to mess with the numbers of the sheet. So basically, we went out there, our survey crew went out, located this point on the property, 2 properties down from us. This is the limit of development that they have. This is the limit of development from our building. So we established a line. It was in the memorandum that you all probably saw last month. So we established that line, and we had some back and forth, but we decided to basically comply with that instead of asking the board to approve what we previously had in front of you. So we pulled our development outside of that infill line, which involved, this parking was kind of angled a little bit. This dumpster was into this area a little bit more at an angle. So we pulled a lot of that, all of it, out of that infill line. And we're maintaining 2 feet to that infill line, so during construction, if there's any issue, you know, we're 2 feet away from that line. So the trash enclosure is now in this location. The canopy, we had to shift forward slightly, just to get turning movements to work in this area. Nothing out here changed. We did add, it was raised at the last meeting that we, at the last year DRB meeting that was approved, that we were not including the sidewalk along the street frontage. So we did add that to the plans. And we have had multiple discussions with V-Trans, who's actively doing work out there on coordinating that sidewalk replacement or installation, I guess. As part of that, on the plans also, we're showing V-Trans, at the request, I guess, of the town, has relocated a crosswalk that was in this location right in front of our site. So that will be constructed by V-Trans as part of their work. And basically, they're building the crosswalk with ramps and portion of the sidewalk here, and our contractor would continue the rest of the sidewalk as requested by the town to the property lines. So that's that. Drainage-wise, with the shift outside of the infill line, previously we were kind of filling in this area, if you recall. We were filling back here to get the trash enclosure 2 feet above the base flood elevation, not the enclosure, but the concrete pad. So by moving it out, so a lot of our work, we're not impacting any of the floodplain in the infill beyond, I guess, between the infill line and the river. That's that one. We have a grading, drainage, and utilities plan. Just the site plan again. We have a sediment and erosion control plan, protecting some of the structures that we're building on site as well as along the back of the site. These are just details of the construction details for the contractors. Detail of the doghouse manhole, first defense unit. This is the site overview plan that I went over. One of the major concerns at the last meeting was vehicles getting in and out of this canopy, this proposed canopy. So we developed this vehicle turning movement plan. Shows vehicles fueling up at the furthest north spaces. Basically, a vehicle can make this turn out. And this is a vehicular turning movement plan that's done, that's put together by all engineers. So we didn't just come up with this. It's something that's used throughout the industry. And this is another movement from this coming out. We're showing some paint lines on the ground, showing that, this vehicle can turn out this way. This vehicle can turn out this way without impeding any of the vehicles on site. Lighting plan, which was part of the set from before, that's included in there. And we have the canopy elevation drawings that were included previously. There was some signage that we kind of went back and forth with at the last meeting, how to keep larger vehicles from using that canopy. So we developed some signs. They're 18 by 24 for this sign that would go on the new canopy. It says no trucks, no trailers, no diesel, informing the customers that, hey, if you have a trailer, large truck, or need diesel, it's not available at this canopy. The front canopy, the existing canopy, would have a sign that gets located over the dispenser that says diesel. So there's diesel offered at that dispenser only. And those signs, like I said, would be placed on the canopy columns as you're approaching the site. So one would be placed on this canopy column above the dispenser, nothing obstructing it, so you would see that as you're driving up to the site. And the other one would be placed above this dispenser. We have had discussions with the American Legion. I can address it, or Tom can kind of address that, and Legion
Yeah,
members are also here tonight.
Yeah, and they obviously will speak up for themselves, I'm sure, but just, you'll note on your plan, we noticed a sort of an access area back here in the parking lot, that the plan was, or the discussion was, that if the idiot factor happens, and people don't read signs, which I know that never happens, but if that happens, and a truck or a snowmobile trailer or somebody pulls in there and they're not comfortable using that R on the reverse and backing out, that we would provide an emergency vehicle access, emergency only, so that this would be signed, you know, on both sides of this access to say emergency only. So that if we had to get somebody out that way, we could. And the discussions with the Legion were because they were concerned that if they have events back here or anything, they don't want this to be, you know, I-91, where everybody's trying to go out that way. So it would be signed to be emergency only, and also we would have the ability, because it would be signed on 2 posts, that we could just cone it off or chain it off if they were having an event here and needed, you know, like a barbecue out in the parking lot or something like that. That's the discussion, guys. Did I capture that fairly well?
To a certain degree, yes.
If you'd like to comment or add or delete from that, be glad to. But that's sort of the issue around concerns about circulation around here, or if a vehicle couldn't get out or couldn't back out, that would be the option. Without that access, you know, we think it complicates it for both of us. American Legion's ability to continue to use this and use our parking lot is something that we're trying to accomplish with both things. So that's where the discussions are with that.
So I'll just conclude with, so we did have discussions with Kyle and through Jared as well. Floodproofing of the building, so there was discussion back and forth about, you know, what are we doing with the existing building, even though we're not tearing it down and rebuilding it. So we forwarded some information over to both Kyle and Jared. We would basically floodproof the existing footing of the building to 2 feet above the base flood elevation. So our building right now is at, to give you a perspective, it's 998.68 is the building finished floor. The floodplain elevation is 997.5, so we're a foot and a few inches above the base flood elevation. We would have to floodproof the building another 10 inches, let's say. So we would have to go up to 999.5 with our floodproofing of the entire perimeter of this building, which we have provided information, and we have agreed to do that.
Can I ask how you're going to do that?
Is it through the board, or
Sorry, what was that? Sorry.
there's a question from the crowd?
Who had the question?
I know.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
How are you going to floodproof it? The letter I'm looking at from Kyle Madash
Yep.
says that it has to be 2 feet above the base flood elevation. You talked about a foot.
So I can address that again. So that letter was something that Kyle provided. We didn't have it at the meeting last month.
Right.
So it was May 12th, I believe the meeting was May 12th. So we've addressed that so the 2 feet above the base flood elevation. The base flood elevation out there is 997.5. Our building finished floor is at 998.68. So the finished floor of the building is already above the base flood elevation, but the requirements are if you're impacting more than 50%, I don't know, Jared can get to that, but if you're impacting more than 50% of the cost of the building within the last 3 years, you can clear that up a little bit, but you'd have to do something to your existing building. So what we're doing is, we're going up to 997.5, from 997.5 to 999.5, and we're basically we're gonna pull back some of the siding and the interior sheetrock or whatever is inside the building. I didn't really go through that, but they'd have to put in items that are typically used to flood-proof a building, and Tom's done this at a number of sites in Vermont. So we've provided the information, and Kyle's reviewed one of the recent projects that we did where we had to do that as well in Richmond, Vermont. So we have to flood-proof that building as well. So it's been in a, we're basically using the same thing we did for that brand-new building and applying that to this existing building. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct. In Richmond in particular, we had to get 3 feet above the floodplain, so it was newly constructed, so it was concrete new walls that were constructed, and then sealing those walls down to the foundation. So we're going down on the outside of the foundation and providing a vapor barrier and a seal on the outside, and doing the same thing on the inside to get us above the floodplain.
2 feet above.
So we, architects and engineers provide the details for this stuff, so.
And just to put some of it on the record, we've got documentation for that might help answer your questions. So when you do a major improvement, it's based off of the number that FEMA uses is 51%. They've kind of taken the generalization between 48 and up, close to 50, it's basically, if you're doing that, you're held to a higher standard, and it's in a 3-year rotating, as they've stated, and that kind of triggers a higher level because you're investing more. In order to keep the flood protection programs, they must meet those standards, and that's where they're coming up with those numbers. So based off of the document I have that we received, currently it's sitting at, and this only goes back to, and this goes back to August of '23. We're currently at 1,516,922.29. So, yeah, so that puts us above 51%. So that's why that's being triggered. We figured that at the beginning, since we've had a lot of changes, we got an additional packet of information that let them present, and then we can go through and have our questions answered. But do you have another question from the American Legion?
Sure. I'm looking at sheet 10,
On the plans?
on 10 on the plans, and
Okay.
this circulation program or plan, it looks like an accident waiting to happen to me. You've got cars coming off of Main Street, making it either driving in or circling around, trying to exit in both directions. It looks like a nightmare to me, and I don't see how, and you show no traffic flow for the other pump situation. So there's gonna be cars at the front pumps, there's gonna be cars at the proposed new pumps, and I see no traffic flow indications on this sheet of how that's gonna work.
So again, it's a low-speed facility, right? People aren't flying through the site, or they shouldn't be. So if this vehicle's coming out, turning out, and he sees that someone's here, he's gonna have to stop.
Maybe.
It's not like you're making it, maybe, yeah. If they don't, then they get into an accident. He wants to deal with the insurance.
And just to remind everyone, the canopy on the plan is what's overhead. What's on the ground is the canopy column and the gasoline dispenser. So the footprint on the ground is much smaller than what it looks like on the plan. So there's a comfortable amount of turning radius in and out of these pumps. And, it's our feeling that and part of the reason we came back with the second canopy again was that this is a safety mechanism, an improvement in safety. Traffic engineers will tell you that we are a bypass use, which means we don't bring new customers to our facility. We only capture traffic off the road. So we're not creating any more traffic on the road. What this does is create a relief valve for potentially, as anybody can go out there on a winter weekend and see cars backing up out onto Main Street trying to get to the 2 pumps that are there. This provides a safety relief to the second canopy, which is why we think it works. And we think the radiuses are, and believe me, as an owner and operator, creating unsafe conditions on a lot just makes your insurance company cringe. okay, and brings an awful lot of liability on you. So we're not gonna put something out there that's gonna be unsafe. This meets any traffic engineering study that shows this is a safe movement in and out of this facility.
So other than, go ahead, Rose.
Hi, guys. I just had a thought, and I know that Tom Frawley said that he was going to put up, he wanted to put up a sign that was about 18 by 24, and unless they planned on taking other signs down, they're already at their sign limit or maybe over, and, I mean, there can't be any more signs. So I just wanted you guys to think about that, or unless, you know, you were going to offer him to come back for a variance on a sign, because that is an issue.
Well, Rose, does that apply to traffic signage and directional sign?
Yes, it does.
It's not a directional sign per se. Directional signs usually have enter Taco Bell or enter mobile or enter something like that. This is an
We have
advisory
that.
sign.
I'm sorry, he's saying we do have that in our zoning book. It talks about enter signs and exit signs.
These are not enter or exit signs. These are similar to a stop or a do not enter signs. These are advisory signs. They're not
And that
signs
is, it's a sign.
advertising the building though.
All signs are included in our sign regulations.
I have to repeat that part of it, but I've never dealt with that in any of the communities.
So other than using those signage, I know you get the traffic flows here for our depiction. Was there any other, you measured, you said the word paint in your description. Was that referencing that you're going to put paint on the ground, or was that just in reference to the blue marks
The
on?
paint lines on the ground.
Okay, so you are gonna put paint lines on the
So
ground.
similar to what you would see at an intersection, if you're taking a left turn, there would be an arrow.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that statement. Okay, so you're gonna have just the arrows?
On the ground.
Okay. Does the board, while we're on traffic, does the board have any questions about traffic?
I have a question.
Fire away, Phil.
On page 10 of 10, the traffic flow.
Yep.
Just for the record, can you tell us, you have depicted here two cars at the pump, kind of facing the river there? Page 10 of 10. Your two cars facing the river. What's the distance from the front of that right-hand vehicle to the parking area, the parking spot that's next to the dumpster? That corner next to the dumpster, from that corner of that parking spot where there would be the ascent of car to the front end of the car getting gas, how far is that distance right there?
From the front of the car.
From the front of the car to the back end of the car parked in that parking lot next to the dumpster?
25.
25 feet? Thank you. You said that you pulled the whole canopy back so you could make your...
Forward.
Yeah, toward. Again, just for the record, I guess I'd be curious, what's the distance between the new proposed pump, one closest to Main Street, and to the existing pump on the left?
So just to clarify, from this
Yep,
dispenser
yep, to that one, yes. What's that?
across
Yes.
this way,
Yeah, what's the distance? Because that's where cars are going to be traveling back and forth.
35 feet.
35 feet, so we get that for the record.
Or you want to add, Phil?
That's a good question.
Rose?
Rose has a question.
Go ahead, Rose.
Your first permit that you received, you were able to tear down the Napa building for additional parking. put a bathroom into the convenience store, add new tanks, and that was approved by Kyle Midash. And you were also allowed to add the fill and do that, and I think some landscaping. But why were you digging when you were told not to do certain work by the zoning office? And you were digging specifically in the area where you want the new tanks in the canopy. And that is in flood area also. And that is without a permit, and it requires flood hazard review. And also, that is a violation. So I'm wondering why you went ahead and continued to do that when you were told by the office not to do that.
I'd be glad to address that. Yeah, we, when we knocked down the Napa building, in order to get the grades to approval based on our first permit, we took the slab out. We had to remove hydraulic lift tanks out of that particular area. And so that was the majority of the work that was completed. To date, we have done the underground work, which wouldn't change the grades. That's just piping and potentially the dispensers, a risk that I was willing to take and understand that we've got a business and an operator who's out of business. And gas station convenience stores, people don't go, oh, we'll wait 3 months for them to reopen. They obviously go somewhere else. And so that's lost business for both of us. So the time frame of getting these things done, if in fact the board does not approve the second canopy, which that's a risk I took. So it means we're just gonna pave over it. So we don't think we were in violation of anything that was on that first permit. And the groundwork that was done is only to get ready to perfect the grades, pave, and be done, regardless if the board approves our canopy or not.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rose. Did you have something else you wanted to add, Bill?
No, not at the moment.
Have you thought about, where Phil had you measure out in between the two canopies there, you've got vehicles coming in, going left and, going straight or left, depending on how they pull in, and right. Was there any consideration of putting any paint on the road side of the new canopy?
Paint on the roadside?
Yeah, so you said where the arrows, the black arrows are depicted,
Yeah.
that's gonna be paint in your proposal, correct? Just what, okay.
Correct.
So I'm just asking, was there any other places that you had considered using paint
Direct vehicles.
to help direct vehicles?
There wasn't, it was, the main concern was trying to get these guys, instead of them trying to take a left out, right? Someone here trying to take a left out, to paint down so they can take a right out.
Okay.
And then this vehicle, try to get them out without, having this guy try to make this turn.
Okay, so,
Other than that, vehicles will come into the facility.
so based off the depiction there, the traffic would only be pulling in, based off the way it's depicted, they'd be pulling from the roadside, not swinging in. I'm just trying to see through, we already talked about, last time we talked a lot about, it's busy times, people see an open pump, right? I'm just trying to, flesh that out a little bit more.
What kind of arrows? or
No,
payment
I'm just
options?
considering if there was, if you guys had,
This arrow's pointing up here? and-
yeah, I didn't know if you had considered that that was the only way that people were going to be entering, as depicted, that's, would be the assumption.
Again, if a vehicle's here waiting, they can come in and make this if this is
Correct.
available.
What I'm saying is that, is it potential confusion of where someone pulls in the opposite? You see where I'm saying? They make the turn, they come around and make the turn in.
Oh, and coming out this way?
Yes.
Someone might.
I-
You know,
right.
But again, we could show arrows here and here
Okay.
depicting, that's the movement we would like to.
Okay. Any other board members, questions on traffic? You guys have more questions on traffic?
Keith Rowland again. So, the existing pumps on the roadside, if a truck and a trailer pulls in and stops at the first pump to the north, the trailer's gonna be in front of the traffic maybe trying to get to this other island, or vice versa. Car may swing around here, try to get in there. It still looks almost not safely functional. Either side of those pumps on the street side, if a truck or a diesel comes in, it's got a trailer, it's gonna be maybe blocking in part your proposed circular traffic to get to the pumps on the north side. That looks confusing to me.
And I think if we think of our own experiences, in all the properties in the state that we go buy gasoline in, the majority of these situations are self-managing. In other words, if somebody sees a tractor trailer pulled across, they're just gonna move on down the road. They're not gonna go in. They're just gonna not go in. If it's too busy or they don't like what's happening there, they don't go. And that's what restricts, our business in a lot of these cases. Once again, as Hussein pointed out, this is slow traffic inside the location. There's no way for folks to sort of speed through the property to try to get to another street or beat a traffic light or any of those concerns that you run into where vehicle traffic goes too fast. You're right. If somebody pulls in with a trailer or something and blocks that, then there's no access to that dispenser back there and folks go somewhere else. We lose customers.
Well, if they have a shell card, they're gonna wanna come to you.
We are a good operator and a nice neighborhood, and that's why they come to me.
And great neighbors.
I've been all with it, and there's many people can stand up and speak about it, why they come to me and why I'm here. And all those vehicles in the gas station, when we put them in a 9 parking, they're not moving. They always tell, here the existing canopy is, then I have a parking right in front of it. What happened? The people just back up right on the guys on the pump and back. It can happen, but never happened. If people when move and we're conscious, it's not driving around and circling around and is something going on and they are on a war to get on the pump. People pretty reasonable to move one pump to another pump. And every gas station, I'm a more convenient gas station than any other situation in this town. To mobile, to next door, to any other end. But I did not understand of the logic of it. This is traffic moving at the dispenser. We have a traffic study, we have an engineer, and I operated a 25-year gas station. This gentleman built 60-year gas station from Manhattan to the Vermont. But next door, my neighbor has my concern how traffic gonna move, how people gonna get gas. I have a hard time to understand that, focus on just this. If they're concerned as safety, we're happy to address.
I think that the traffic concern, at least from the board's perspective, is potential hazards, right? And that's why we appreciate the Legion's comments, and we've seemed to have flushed out what your proposal is. In the sense of traffic, you mentioned what you had worked out with the Legion in reference to the space between there. I just want you to, for the record, to explain exactly, once again, what you had, how you're gonna have that signed, or et cetera.
Yeah, our proposal at this point, and it's not finalized with the Legion,
Okay.
they still have discretion over this, was to make sure that we were providing access for both of us. One, to address the town's concerns about an emergency exit. Should a tractor trailer or something pull down there and doesn't want to back up, that we have the ability to safely get a vehicle out of there. And also continue to allow the Legion to have access back into our parking lot for events and for parking at night. And their property's very tight, and so we wanted to make sure we were accommodating that. There was still a concern from the Legion's perspective, and I don't want to speak, for them, but from the words that I heard Sunday morning at their board meeting, was there was a concern about, cars rushing through there, and the safety from their perspective. That if that was like an unfettered access as an exit, and egress out of our canopy, they're concerned that too many people would be driving through there and it wouldn't be safe. So the suggestion was, yet to be finalized, was that we would put signs on our side that said emergency vehicles only, or emergency exit only, and allow them the opportunity for when they're doing events, they could put cones up, or we put plastic chain across, so it eliminates that. We would still have the ability to say, hey guys, we got this truck stuck here, we're gonna let one truck out through here. You know, it's what we hope good neighbors can do to make it work for both of them. You know, eliminating access between our properties doesn't, I mean, it still works safely for us. You know, without that emergency exit, we still feel very comfortable that we've got a safe turning radius for vehicles, and trucks we can back them out. We do that with delivery vehicles. Everybody in town who gets a delivery, you know, does the same thing with their trucks for delivery. So common sense, good judgment. It's not ideal. We don't like people backing up anytime, right? But that's what the proposal would be. For the record, it is not finalized between members of the Legion and us, but that's what, if the board makes that a condition, then, you know, we have to figure out how to make it work.
Okay. Go ahead.
Excuse me. We had an executive board meeting yesterday and membership meeting for the Legion. And Tom came to the executive board meeting. We discussed it at both meetings after his leaving and so forth. We are not for it and we're not against it in some respects.
Okay.
If that makes sense. We know, at least I believe I know, that we open at noon 7 days a week. So 11:30, anybody can pull up to our pump. And the people are gonna be like water. They're gonna take the path of least resistance. They will go through our parking lot. We have a lot of that happening now when they go around the whole Shell Station building, delivery trucks, so forth, so on. They leave Shell Station, they come over to us and deliver, da-da-da-da. And it is a safety thing. We will be parking more out on the river. There's gonna be a roadway, if you will, going through our parking lot. Potentially vehicles can get hit and/or somebody crossing from parking on the riverside as somebody's coming out. And we want to be good neighbors, and we're willing to go with this signage issue at this point in time, and if things happen, then we'll address it then if we're not happy. You know, I mean, worst comes to worst, I guess a fence or a guardrail gets put up, and we don't want to see that, and then I know you don't want to see that.
We're comfortable with a fence or
it's just-
guardrail.
And, you know, obviously, a big truck's not gonna pull up their 18-wheeler to get diesel fuel. If they do, then they really aren't paying attention, since there's no diesel there, obviously. But, we just,
No,
that's where we are. Our hands are somewhat tied in some respects. We know our parking area, the way we have it, we've got double lines going, double parking up behind our building towards the river. And that will change, because as you get closer to the river with their parking and so forth, we can't do that anymore.
Yeah,
So,
being that you're the Legion is a legal interested party in this case, the evidence you provide is of equal weight and testimony
Yep.
as the applicant.
Yep.
And so at the last meeting, you expressed concerns, and it's this board's job to try to at least address those concerns or get questions answered in that
totally
regard.
understand that.
And so
Totally.
I do appreciate that you guys met outside of this meeting and potentially worked out something that's semi-amicable.
So, it's not carving concrete
No,
by any stretch.
no, it is from, and this may be incorrect, but are you gonna have to redraw your parking space lines based off this dimension? Okay,
Without a doubt, because our
Okay.
parking goes here. One here, 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 and then in this way.
okay,
So obviously, when you get up into this area,
yep,
that's
Okay.
not gonna happen. And we've always been told, out here is emergency vehicle access, so we've always kept that clean.
okay,
Obviously, that won't be, because if emergency vehicles gotta come around our building and get behind Shell Station, they're gonna hit an abutment right there at that parking spot, if a vehicle's parked there. That's not our call, but that's you, fire chief, whoever, ever.
okay. Any other questions in regards to traffic before?
Yeah, just for clarification, I'm just thinking somebody, they don't care about signs, it's all about me. They pull in, they see the front pumps are taken up, they got their snowmobile trailer on the back of their F-150. they're gonna go to the other pump. They pull in, they gas up, they pull forward, they say, oh, we can't make this turn. Why do you think they would look at a sign that says for emergency vehicles only is giving them a green light to go behind the Legion? I mean, kind of a law-abiding, conscious person would think, well, I can't go there, I'm not an emergency vehicle. So they're gonna begin the 800-point K turn to try to get out of there. That's my concern. How do we address that person? Because it's gonna happen. I guarantee you, I'll put money on the table, it's gonna happen.
I think there are always gonna be exceptions to everything. You're gonna get the 1% idiot factor that happens, and you have to manage it from giving them help to back them out, or taking the chain down and helping them go through the emergency access. But they don't wanna hurt their trailer, they don't wanna hit a $10,000 pump, all those things are part of having
Who's gonna
facilities.
help them?
Well, we have employees on
So
staff.
the employee's gonna leave the store and go out there and direct them?
Yes, yes, yeah, and that's why we
I'm
have.
not arguing, I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
yeah, no, we have windows on the side of the building so that we have, and camera systems that we have visibility on every dispenser, every corner of the lot. And we do that in all our facilities. It happens that, the wrong size vehicle pulls in the wrong way, and it happens. Delivery trucks get stuck, all those things happen. Somebody has to get out and help them back out and maneuver out. And that's something, like you said, that happens all over town. I know this is a proposal, so you want to make it as safe as possible, but common sense and good judgment's gonna prevail at 98% of the time. The 2%ers will manage those, as they come up.
So, again, just for the record, there will be a window on that side of the building?
Yes,
And the clerk, wherever they're stationed, will be able to view
complete
that?
visibility of both like gas islands.
Any other questions, comments on traffic? Okay. Other board member questions? I just want to run through the Kyle Dash letter, they're on the record.
Did we get a new Kyle letter?
So what I have is dated May 13th, received by the Planning and Zoning Office, was sent Monday, May 12th, was received by the office on the 13th. I believe that's the latest letter. I know there's a lot of email correspondence, but basically, this is as he states, that this is, his official comment letter that meets the state regs.
Yep.
So, just to kind of go through his different sections here. So we talked about the cost estimate of work and the current value, and that is a substantial improvement determination. He has a different figure in the letter than what you've provided. The cost has gone up. Base flood elevation is 997.5. Store structures at 998.58. Currently, the first floor is about 1 foot above BFE. However, the town requires new or substantially improved to be elevated or flood-proof. We'll touch a little bit more on the exact flood proofing. I know you provided some documentation. That's 131.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. He did also mention in here about pursuing a LOMA. Are you guys not going to pursue a LOMA?
No.
Okay. The underground tank replacements were covered under your previous permit. I know that a lot of the same documentation was provided as part of this permit, but that was all previously covered under your previous permit. And just to clarify for on the record, none of that has changed.
Correct.
Okay. So, he mentions we're now at, where he's got title section 5E2E, about the HVAC equipment not specified in the application, though to meet this requirement, recommends a particular unit, and that it needs to be elevated 2 feet above BFE. Okay. You guys are okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. And can you point out, just for on the record, where that's gonna be?
So initially, we had this area in the back. The propane tanks are gonna go here.
Okay.
They're going to be anchored. And then they split, there was a pad here, Because of that comment, you can take a mini split and you can wall mount it.
Okay.
So it's way above the base flood
Okay.
elevation, so that's what's been done.
Okay, so that's the plan, is you're gonna wall mount it instead of having it pad mounted. Okay. All right.
And that is on the plan as well, there's a note for that.
Okay. A lot of this is just to get it, on the record, and if there's any questions from the board, questions from interested parties, we'll cover that. Okay, down to the next section, talks about the new trash enclosure, where he references, closer to the river than the existing above-ground development, which you talked about in the infill area, which you've pulled back, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that's still going to be, as mentioned in your previous permit with the chain link fence, as described before.
Oh, the trash enclosure.
Yeah, for the trash, we're still on the trash enclosure, sorry. So, on the trash enclosure, the chain link fence with the opening at the bottom to allow the water. You can have the privacy through the upper levels if necessary, but basically we'll keep the dumpster self-contained in the event of a flooding incident. So that's not that portion's remaining unchanged?
Correct.
Okay, so just the location.
Location was shifted outside.
Okay, the rest of the trash enclosure is not changed?
Correct.
Okay. And that was what he mentioned in his thing. So, to go.
Excuse me, would you like that letter put in, attached to the minutes?
If that's easier for you. If that's easier for you.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's in this case, it's one of the biggest important things.
I know, that's why.
So,
Can I ask a question?
sure, go ahead.
Hussein, in regard to the electrical meters on the side of the building here, are those already 2 feet above elevation? And then there's some things in the back wall here that appear to be permanently mounted. It look like the HVAC, I know you can't really see it too much there, but,
So the HVAC is above, yeah, so.
Yeah, and that's
for
above
reference,
also.
the door threshold is a foot above base flood elevation already. So by mounting a unit here, we would comply. The units are further up. The electrical, I don't know if there's, the meters, you can't put the meter that close to the ground level anyway, so yeah, the meter would be above as well.
And that's in just the pictures that I gave you.
Okay. Okay. So then for, going back to referencing Kyle Medash's letter where he talked about the amount of money, putting you in the substantial improvement category. For the index, just for everyone's reference, is 175. We've got your dry flood proofing certificate for the design, along with, on the right page here, I believe you had an elevation in there as well.
Yeah, this is an elevation for a section for the walls.
Yeah, so on 177, that's your elevation certificate. And this one covers your preliminary design. So can you just walk us through, you got some material here in the back with some of the barriers and stuff, explain where those are gonna be, how those are gonna be deployed, or when they're gonna be deployed.
So there's, one of the handouts is for the wall section we discussed, it's the wall section. There's a new liquid applied waterproof membrane from existing grade to a minimum 12 inches above the slab. So it's gonna go under the slab in this area to 12 inches above the existing slab. That is the Nudo insulation protection liner handout.
Yep.
That sheet.
So 188 is our page, is the depiction that you were referencing up there.
Okay. And then the other handout, part of the words, but it's damn easy expandable flood barrier, that's what they call it.
And they are, I've used them.
They're damn easy. So those are at the doors. Those would be used at the doors when there's a flood.
Okay, so can you, ready-to-use easy flood barriers. Can you explain how they work? We've seen different styles used in town to meet requirements.
They're manual doors.
Okay.
They're stored at the store. In the
Okay.
event of a anticipated flood event, the employees are trained to deploy them in the doorway area. You basically just expand them to the doorway, and then you pump up. And there's a inflatable seal around the frame of the unit that seals off the doors. So we have the front entrance, the double door, and then the emergency rear exit. So they're the only two doors that fit the two. So we have two units, they're both, deployable, within a couple minutes.
Are these like stored next to the door?
They'd be
or-
stored in the storage area in the back.
Okay, okay.
We wouldn't want them to be a trip hazard or anything like that for customers.
We do still need the stamped dry flood-proof elevation following construction.
Okay.
If it gets to that point.
Okay, so yeah, we'll just take a note as that.
Who was that,
The
Jerry?
design portion was submitted.
Yeah, so this is the design, yes, and this would, so,
Updated when they finish completion.
yeah,
Page
I'll get
178.
that.
Yep.
Page was that?
178.
178.
Is there a training manual for how to use these?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a maintenance schedule?
Yes, you have to inflate them periodically to make sure they're still inflatable, not having to develop any holes in them or anything like that. So, and it's part of a new employee hire checklist.
Okay. So is this a layperson skill, or do you have to be a?
So you don't have to be a Hussein, an engineer, no.
Okay.
No, if I can do it, trust me.
No, I mean, we've seen, in reference to some of that we've seen, right, we're talking big, heavy metal pieces. The way you describe these are inflatable, lightweight.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
they're rigid plastic,
Okay.
and then the perimeter of that is the inflatable section. So once you expand it for the doorway, lock that in place, you just pump
Okay.
it up, and you're sealed.
Okay.
That's the name.
Yeah. Well, different places have used different styles,
Yeah.
so.
Marketing work
Hence
on
why
me.
the questions. Are those, the training and maintenance documents, something you can send to us?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
And they might be included in that packet with the description of that, but if
This
not,
looked like the sales brochure,
yeah,
is
okay,
what it was.
we can provide
Yeah.
that, yes.
So, okay, any questions on flood measures? Anyone else have flood measure questions? Okay. Other questions from the board?
Interior?
So we got some interior stuff. I'd like to talk about the expected, find my right sheet here. It's like 200 pages, so pardon. Correct. Just walk us through the expected expenses. So we're at 1.5 million. I don't need it line by line, but,
Well, the majority of that is site work, underground storage tank work, and that work that was completed outside of the building. Inside the building, we are only upgrading and replacing existing
okay,
fixtures, believe it or not.
okay,
And give an example, the hood system for the deli that was there was out of date, out of code. To replace that one unit was $65,000.
Yep.
So those, you could understand it adds up quickly.
yes.
So we, as part of our previous permit, we were allowed to bring the bathroom inside.
Yep.
So when you put the bathroom inside, you're cutting the floor for drainage and everything else and ruining all the existing old VTC tile. And so if we're gonna make those sort of changes to walls in that floor, we should probably replace the floor so that we've got
Okay.
want a flood-proof ceramic tile surface. So that's a big number,
Okay.
replacing that floor and doing the bathroom. Obviously bathroom, anybody who's done a renovation at home with the bathroom falls over after they get the first estimate from their contractor. So the bathroom was a big expenditure. And I equate this to, you go and paint one wall in your house, and you go, oh boy, those other three walls look terrible, so I guess we better keep going. So we had an old lighting system overhead that was sort of, bright to the eye sort of thing, and we were doing all kinds of replacement, new electrical,
Okay.
to accommodate that service, so we had to put a drop ceiling in. So that came into
Okay.
that aspect of it, so we had new floors, new ceiling, and the cabinets were old, tattered, said, well, we probably should replace all the cabinets, so we replaced all the cabinets. And then we looked at our cooler systems, that the compressors were 20 years old and eating up an awful lot of electricity, speaking of electricity. Better mood lighting, thank you. And so we ended up replacing the compressors, or plan to replace the compressors on the coolers so that they use half as much electricity and cool the cooler better. And on the front of the coolers, those are really old, 30-year-old cooler doors that are inefficient. So you replace all the cooler doors, and you know, before you know it, you're at $1.5 million, and you're still closed. I hope that answers.
No, that
generally
answers-
answers the
Yeah,
question.
so that answers kind of what you're doing on the
Couple other
interior.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
but a couple other things, big things on the interiors, all the windows were old windows that were leaking. You could feel the wind going through them, so we replaced all the existing windows. Same sizes and everything, same door, so that one, the door seals better, okay, and we can close it, and also is a lot more appealing. So, and then we replaced all the exterior siding, and that old rotting wood mansard roof that was on the front, we just put a metal roof on the front of it. So, you know, it's gonna look like we built it from the ground up.
Well, I appreciate the explanation, thank you. Other questions from the board?
Did we, last month, did we discuss lighting, exterior lighting?
A little bit, but you got questions? Fire away.
No, I don't have any questions. I just have no brain that I can't remember what we
Did
talked
did the
about.
lighting plan change at
No.
all?
No.
Okay.
I had a question.
Go
So
ahead.
when you do all this, in the renovations, do you like work through Efficiency Vermont or anything?
Yes.
It's not like you know what you're doing this time.
I had a question about the floor plan, page 125. Actually, a couple of questions. So I don't see a doorway into the back of the cooler. Is that through the back of the building?
No, in order to accommodate the bathroom, we closed the cooler entrance door, and the first door of the cooler doubles as a entrance door to the cooler, and you push back the shelving. It's typically the dairy door. It's a common way to add a little bit of space and accommodate the handicapped accessible bathroom.
And then I remember Hussein saying that you could see the pumps from where the clerk stands, but here, it doesn't appear that there's a window on this side of the building, because when I recall going in for beverages, I would see, I think, probably cigarettes and tobacco and stuff out there.
I think this side of the building, so.
Yeah, so here on the
Yeah.
floor plan, it looks like there's things in,
There's the window
Okay.
opening as it exists. So
That could be
that's
shelving that's underneath the.
right.
okay.
Is Doug still with us? Doug, do you have any questions? I know you're not feeling well, but we haven't forgotten you. Other board member questions?
Oh, the police chief's update. Hit that.
Sure. You want to do that, Phil? Want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so last time we had a question about peak hours with no deliveries. So got a clarification, and peak winter hours, statement by Jeff Warfel was between 1,500 and 1,800 local time during the winter. So,
3 to 6 p.m.
yeah, so that's kind of the major traffic when everyone's trying to leave the mountain, so. You guys okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, comments, tell us anything else about your project?
Well-
Before I open it up to, we had a lot of hands raised for people who want to speak for this project,
Sure.
so.
And
there might be more
I just want to
questions.
thank the board for hearing us again and working with us with all these modifications and changes. We still believe that what we're trying to do here is a major improvement to, something that's on Main Street here in town. And we think that everybody in town is going to be real happy with the end product as a result of it. And the only thing we'd ask the board is that if we could move expediently, to a decision that would certainly help get my operator back in business. Self-inflicted, we're the ones who went under construction, but, finding contractors, no offense, Mark Samet, and materials and getting projects moving along is no small task today. If anybody's worked in that, and they understand what I'm talking about. So timing would be,
We do
Critically
understand
important.
that, and we do our best with all decisions to try to get those out the door.
just appreciate it.
And so we do appreciate that. Just one comment on what Rose said is that if they gave you an action, right, that said stop, it's best to do that, right? And I understand that you
For the
accept-
record, I just want it noted that we did stop.
Okay.
When Jared
Okay.
came by and told us to stop because he thought we were operating outside of our permit conditions, we did stop.
Okay.
And we met with Jared and Rose to discuss where we were and what they would allow us to do. We clarified all the tasks that needed to be completed or what we could work on, in lieu of the fact that there was some concern that we were operating outside of the permit. So I believe
Okay.
we complied with that. We
Okay.
didn't mean to try to pull a fast one or anything.
No,
We just,
I've always taken the perspective that it's best if you are upfront with the board, right? In that regard. And so we appreciate that. So thank you. There's a lot of hands raised for other potential comments, so we'll go around. Go ahead with Jean first.
Okay, Jean Strong, I'm on the planning commission, and the two questions I'm gonna ask frequently come up. So can you show me on the plan, which I can't see from here, show me where the crosswalk is gonna be?
The relocated crosswalk
Yes,
that
yes.
E-Trans is doing, so
Yeah.
it's currently here,
Yeah,
to the right of the property. It's going to be right in the middle of the property.
okay. And is there parking there? I'm just thinking how someone's gonna cross the street.
There are
they
two
gonna
parking
be?
spaces there now that will not be there.
Okay, that,
they're limited.
okay, that's, and can you show the 14 parking spaces?
So we had 14, I forgot to mention that, but we reduced that down to 13 to still meet the parking requirements. Because of the relocation of the trash enclosure, we had to lose one space here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back here, 2 in the side, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
I thought 14 was the required number.
12 is the required.
12.
We were providing 14. We were 2 over. Now we're 1 over.
I thought for the hearing on the agenda, it says 14 spaces.
The agenda might still say 14. That might not have been updated.
So that it's always been that 12 was the minimum that they needed.
Okay,
Yep.
all right,
They were above the minimum before.
okay, that's fine. And my other question, can you just show, I think I can see it now, but your landscaping plan, and is there a plan for landscaping between your building and the residents to the right, if you're looking at the shell to
To
the
this
right?
area?
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
nothing proposed in that area.
Nothing proposed in that area. So is, oh, okay. And so just where is the landscaping then?
The existing landscaping that's there would not be modified. There are a number of trees in this area that would not be modified.
So you would
And a
leave
stockade
those?
fence.
Those are there, yeah.
Okay, and you trim them or something, right?
The right side of the building, there's
Right.
nothing in our side, that's on the neighbor's side.
You can't see it. That's all the trees.
Right, I've seen it. I just
That's
wondered if they were gonna, if it's part of your plan. to-
No, we're not
to trim
touching those. no.
Okay. And what are those trees in the back?
I'm sorry, these?
Yeah, what is that?
These are buffer plantings that were approved last year through the previous approval process.
Is there any change to those? No. Okay. With you bringing your space back, since this got brought up, is that going to be dirt or grass or
It's
gravel?
Gravel
Okay.
currently, it would be, yeah, replaced with gravel.
Okay. So between the buffer and the first paved parking spot is going to be gravel?
Correct.
Okay. Is there going to be stops along those parking spots to prevent people from driving through there, or there's just going to be painted spots?
Just edge of pavement.
Okay. Do you have more questions, Gene?
No, that's it. Thank
Okay.
you.
We had other hands up. Or is that it? Okay. You guys want to add anything more about your project?
I just want to say that we have enjoyed a good relationship with our neighbors on both the north and the south side. We're not here to be confrontational. We're just here to ensure that the project is done safely and that certain considerations for traffic flow, I know you'll take those into account, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak here.
Thank you for your help too. I would be the same neighbor I was before 15 years, and the next 20 years would be the same neighbor. Doesn't matter what is the outcome.
Oh, go ahead, Rose.
I didn't know if I heard this correctly. He said that, Hussein said that the crosswalk was in the middle of the property and goes across, and then 13 parking spaces, and then 2 parking spaces would be removed from Main Street? Did I hear that correctly?
That doesn't include the 13.
So, I'll just
No, I know that.
clarify, so
There's 2 parking spaces in front of the Shell station on Main Street. Are those being removed?
not by us.
By V-Trans.
So we've had discussions with V-Trans to incorporate the sidewalk that was requested by the board last year, that wasn't on the plan last month. So we've had many discussions with V-Trans. We received their plans that they're doing out there independent of us. They told us they were relocating this crosswalk. However, that came to play directly in front of the site, which would require them to remove the 2 existing on-street parking spaces. So that's independent of what we're doing on site. The on-site parking, we had 14 last month. We had to relocate this trash enclosure and pretty much everything outside of this infill line. So I didn't want to leave the trash enclosure at an angle because it wouldn't work. I relocated that, rotated it, so a vehicle, truck can access the dumpster and get out. By code, we require 1 space per employee plus 1 space per 300 square feet of the building. The building's a little less than 2,500 square feet. We need 12 spaces by code, we're providing 13.
Does that
I
answer?
understand that. I'm sorry, I understand that you only need 12, and that's fine, but my concern is taking away municipal parking.
It's not something
That's
we
the
created.
that's V-Trans.
That's not under them at all,
Yeah.
Rose.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
I just, maybe we can, talk to V-Trans.
It also those spaces on the other side of the street too.
I can't hear.
I said, on the other side of the street, there's probably spots that might have to get removed too.
That's true.
I know, maybe we should talk, this is another topic.
Yeah,
Talk to
separate of
V-Trans.
your guys' permit. So. No, but I appreciate the clarification. Any other things you want to
Thank you.
add? Oh, go ahead, Rose.
No, thank you.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
Any other-
V-Trans already removed the spots off on the
Yeah.
other side of the street.
Yeah, okay. Anything else? Is there any hands up on Zoom, Jerry? Make a motion that we close it.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your patience as we went over that.
Thank you.
Everybody is leaving.
Yeah.
It was said.
Sorry to eat up so much time.
Thank you.
There's 18 kids fishing.
God bless you.
34.
Sorry.
The big question, did you come back with 18?
Yes, and they actually caught some fish.
That's the Chadwick building.
There's somebody up there, JP, and there was somebody young, but I don't know who they were.
We'll find out here in a second.
Maybe still is. I think Yanni's gone.
Okay, folks, appreciate everyone's patience. We're on to the next public hearing. We're going to be opening a new public hearing for Okemo Trailsides Community Association.
We'll leave it where it's cracked, but,
Yeah, you'll leave the door open for legal
yeah, just
purposes.
leave it a little cracked. Okay. Oh, the people shut. It's okay, just as long as they can come if they need to.
Yep. Go ahead, Jared. You're ready, sir.
This is application number 128-98-PUD, amendment number 71, and 496-23-Act 250, amendment number 1. The applicant is Chadwick Builders. Property owners are David Lieberman and Shelley Saber. The application is to convert an existing deck into an enclosed mudroom. This project is in the Mountain Recreation District. Hearing date is today, June 9th, 2025, 6 p.m. Public postings were made at the town clerk's office, town hall bulletin boards, post office, and town website on May 23rd, 2025. In the newspaper of record, the Rutland Herald, on May 24th, 2025. And the abutting property owners were notified on May 22nd, 2025.
Okay, thank you, Jared. Is there anyone here to speak to this hearing this evening? Okay, that works for us. So, we've all had received to the planning office outlined. In the index was 1 through 33. And most of that is abutters and their answers to the question. We do have their fire letter.
Jared, we give him more money.
With some conditions. We also have Chief Warfel's letter with no conditions. The only documentation for the mudroom is a drawing on page 33. We did conduct a site visit prior to this meeting just to get a visual reference. There is no one here to speak to this hearing. We have heard many of these before, but what's the board think? Do we want to wait till someone comes and talks to us, or do we want to close this hearing?
I'd move to close it.
Okay.
I mean, this is their evidence.
Okay.
Somebody obviously filled out these pages, so
Yep.
they know what they're doing. They wanted to present this to us. They presented it. and
Yep.
Here it is.
Is that a motion, or
No, just my thoughts,
Okay.
but
everyone else's?
we'll get to a motion
Okay.
after we discuss
Oh, sure.
that.
Okay, what do you want to talk about on that?
Well, the Ludlow Fire Department
Yep.
letter that was received by the Planning and Zoning Department May 6th, and it's referencing Okemo Trailside Extension, Unit 34A, and Chief Whalen put some conditions in. And he's saying approved construction, electrical, and plumbing permits shall be obtained by the Vermont Division of Fire Safety prior to any work. All noted conditions shall be met, and the project, construction, and occupancy shall be compliant with the stated adoption of addition of NFPA 1, NFPA 101, and the Vermont Fire and Building Safety Code. 2, rough-in and final electrical, plumbing, and rebar inspections shall be completed by the Division of Fire Safety. 3, any wall spaces shared with another unit shall have a fire rating of no less than 1 hour. 4, the unit number shall be clearly placed in an obvious location on the outside of the structure to clearly indicate the unit.
I got
I
it.
get you.
Okay.
I get you.
Those were the fire chief's
Sounds good.
conditions. And the police department had, as you said, George.
No conditions.
No conditions.
And Ben does speak for both the ambulance and the fire department in his new position, so. Anything else from board members? I make a motion that we close this hearing.
A second.
Any discussion? Is there any hands?
There are no hands.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda, we're going to open a new public hearing for Okemo Trailside Community Association, Inc. Go ahead, Jared.
This is application number 128-98-PUD, amendment number 70, and 496-23-Act 250, amendment number 2. The applicant is Miles Bowen, and the property owner is Okemo Trailside Community Association. The application is to replace all the existing decks at Algonquin Village. This project is located in the Mountain Recreation District. Hearing date is today, June 9th, 2025, at 6 p.m. Public postings were at the town clerk's office, town hall bulletin boards, post office, and town website on May 20th, 2025. In the newspaper of record, the Vermont Journal, on May 21st, 2025. And the abutting property owners were notified on May 21st, 2025.
Thanks, Jared. Do we have someone here to speak to this hearing this evening?
My name is Miles Bowen. I'm representing the association
Okay, thanks.
as an owner's rep and advisor.
Okay, so we do have to swear you into this hearing, so just raise your right hand and I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear the evidence that you shall give relative to the matter now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury? I do.
I swear so.
Okay. So I just do want to correct one typo, correct?
Yes,
So-
there has been a typo in the warning, the public warning for this hearing, where we stated it was Village 4 and not Algonquin Village.
But the correct people were.
Everybody was notified.
Everyone that, yes,
In
okay.
the trail side.
So it's just a typo error that was on there, but our postings were correct. Okay, you want to tell us about your project?
I'm sorry, there's about 91 decks up here that are either improperly constructed over many years of so-called maintenance that was really improperly done. And there's also a fair amount of rocks, and we consider them unsafe. So we're recommending that they replace them in their entirety. Several of these decks don't even have footings. They're heaving because they're not properly footed. So the community wants to replace them entirely with the correct footings in all the places they're supposed to be. And it's about 9,950 square feet of decking. Several of them have some stairs when they're the front entry. The rears are double height. There's first floor and second floor on certain units. And all of those are marked on the plans that I gave to Jerry. But basically, it's just simply tear off the deck that shouldn't be there, all of them, and replace it with new construction.
Are you making any of the decks bigger or smaller?
Many of them are being made smaller in the front. There are a variety of sizes. Some of them are 7x9, some are 12x20. And they're all over the map in terms of sizing. So all of the front decks, we're making them approximately 8x8. Actually, specifically 8x8, there's a couple of them we can't do that because of the architecture of the actual building. So they will be approximately 8x8. If it's a shared entrance, a double entrance, sharing the same deck, then it will be as if there were two 8x8 side by side. It will be 16 feet wide, but 8 feet deep instead of what currently is 12, 16, and 20 feet. So reducing the square footage in the front. On the backs, they're all the same depth. They're about 6 feet deep from the building out, and there's a roof overhang to protect them. The widths are varied. Most of them are 14 foot wide, a couple of them are 20 foot wide. If they're not the same on the top and the bottom, we're making them the same. Some, there's no pattern. Some lower ones, some upper ones are not as wide. So for example, we have a 20 foot wide deck on the bottom, 14 foot wide deck on the top. We want to make them the same top and bottom. So we're adding a little bit of deck square footage on the back to make the widths uniform. The appearance on the building will be virtually the same. It makes for better framing, as opposed to we use for support, can continue from one deck to the next, and you don't have to have offset dimensions. So it cleans up the image, it cleans up the construction process.
Are you familiar with the 2 served letters that we received about your project? We'll run through those. So we'll start, we've got one from the police department that currently has no conditions. We have an ambulance letter from Stephanie Grover, and this one, conditions, requests that all the buildings be numbered in accordance with E911 standards, and all numbering is reflective and visible from the street, and that's it for their conditions. And then we come to Ben Whalen's letter, who is the present fire chief. He does have some conditions which we'll go through here. So in his letter, he states he has some significant concerns about the priority of life safety and property protection at all trail sites due to the status of the fire pond and hydrant systems. So then he has the following conditions. So number one, approved construction and work permits shall be obtained by the Vermont Division of Fire and Safety prior to any work. All noted conditions shall be met and the project building and occupancy shall be compliant with the stated adopted edition of NFPA 1, NFPA 101, and the Vermont Fire and Building Safety Code. 2, full inspection of the units shall be completed by a Division of Fire and Safety, and all noted violations shall be corrected within the timeline of an approved plan of compliance. 3, compliant guards shall be in place at all deck access points to prevent someone from attempting to use the deck prior to occupancy being granted. If the deck is part of a required means of egress, the space shall not be occupied. 4, provide a complete status report of the fire pond, hydrant system, and potable water system, black hydrants projects at Trailside. This report shall include the maintenance and operation of the potable water system, maintenance of the fire pond and connected hydrants, status of the hydrant system extension to include, if the project is funded, an ability to meet the previously agreed upon plan of compliance. And 5, if progress is not shown in reference to condition 4, or failure to comply with the previously agreed upon plan of compliance is found, that he will not be able to sign off. Are you familiar with the Trailside MOU and reference to COs and the work that's being conducted there?
For the water lines and the fire hydrants?
Correct. That's what those were all in reference to.
I'm aware of it, I'm not actually managing that, I'm very aware of it, because Ben basically said that had to be done before he would sign off on anything. We have received Mike Messer from the fire marshal's office. Those permits should be on file, I think I gave them to Jared.
Okay. So,
I do know that the permit that was put out for the fire hydrants, water lines, is in progress. I know that they've been working on getting their paperwork in order. They have excavators lined up. And all I can say about it is that it's in progress. It will be being done this year.
okay. So they did provide an
Give
update.
you any real details about it because I'm not managing it.
No, that's okay. The biggest thing is that you're aware of it because you are here on behalf
So,
of,
yeah.
that it does have effect on your project and the MOU
Yeah.
agreement, which which in last month's update they provided that they, I believe, was it July that they said they were gonna start working? If I
Be
remember.
finished by November.
Be finished by November, so, which meets the deadline that they had agreed to with the permits that they had for the fire applications under their deals. But that permit ties to the occupancy and approval. So if for some reason that project does not go through, that would have an impact on this project's CO capability. I just want to make sure that you're aware of the stipulations and what those mean to you with this
Yeah, no, I'm
project.
very aware.
Okay, no, I know his letter is not necessarily forthcoming to someone who's not aware of the project, but I feel that I take the extra minute to make sure that you are, as you say, you're aware of those implications, so.
Yep.
And we did have some Division of Fire and Safety construction permits. Wait, did you say?
Nothing returned yet.
Nothing's returned, okay.
I had to do each individual building, he said they couldn't do them all as a group, so there's 12
Okay.
permit requests. There's actually 13 buildings in the community, and one of them gone to live in the woods.
Okay.
We're only doing 12.
And looks like you gave us a handout for the materials that are gonna be used for the deck.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear all of that.
So, looks like, Design for code compliance, looks like you provided the materials that you're gonna be
Yes.
using for the deck.
Yes, one of the problems that they have there is the decks originally were built in a cantilever style, which means the framing for the flooring comes right out through the wall, and that's been rotted, and some engineering clever person thought if you just cut them off and nail the board on the end of them, you could call it a deck. That's completely unsafe. It's just waiting to fall down. So we encourage the community to realize you have to convert them, so we're converting them to, no, River Joyce, I'm trying to think, ledger boards, so that it's no longer cantilever dependent. So we have to do, and it's in the drawings that I gave to Jared, we have a solution for making a real ram to put a real ledger board on, so that they're properly supported and they're safe. Up until this time, it's a one-to-one, it hasn't collapsed. So the construction details are within code, actually exceed to some degree. And then they're wanting to put a railing system that matches the community across the street, a pre-finished aluminum railing system.
Before we move to the Act 250 review section, does the board members have any questions? Still with us there, Doug? Okay. So as part of the Act 250 deal, you filled out the criteria questions. Basically, for criteria 1, you are currently labeled as not applicable for all of those and items. That there's no changes under sufficient water supply, water consumption, and under waste disposal. How do you guys have a dumpster? That part wasn't.
There'll be a dumpster on the site to haul away the demolition.
Okay, what about your regular trash? Do you guys
I
have?
don't know what they do for that.
Okay,
There's no trash bins out there. I think the customer service technicians go around and collect it out of the units,
okay,
and they put it in, I don't know where they take it. There's
okay.
no dumpster.
So that each owner is responsible for their own trash?
Correct.
Okay. So under municipal services, we did have the ambulance letter and the fire letter and the police letter, of which we all went through. There's no applicable changes to educational services, and you've got no applicable changes to utilities. Are you gonna be putting any new exterior lighting on these decks or anything?
There's actually exterior lighting now. We are gonna modify it a little bit. They're hooked up with timer switches, and every time we lose power, the timer switches change, so they're draining on the grid because somebody has to go back and reprogram the timers. We're going to switch them over to photoelectric eyes, so they only come on when it's dark. And they're gonna modify the lighting plan a little bit, not really drastically. If there's not a light where there should be, one will be put there. It's on the lamp post currently. The lamp posts are integrated as part of the deck. We're gonna separate them in their own footing, so that the deck and the lighting are separate entities. One of the concerns we've had is there's services like wires, bare wires, and other material going through the deck framing that shouldn't be there. That's an unsafe condition, so we're upgrading those to be properly conduited, independently lined into the buildings. So the lighting will be changed to LED fixtures, that'll draw less power. We'll change the signals from timers to photoelectric eyes. But substantially, the lighting stays the same as it is, other than moving a post over a couple of feet to take it off of a deck.
I know, George, that we.
Possibly putting a light on the building where it's more practical.
Oh, go ahead.
But it's minor.
Night skylight, there's a dark skylight or night skylight that we've kind of,
Yeah.
around the board, would,
Yep.
you have a problem with that to comply, is it dark, what's it called?
Dark.
Dark skylight.
Are you familiar with the Dark Sky Initiative that the town has implemented? Basically, where
Dark sky.
initiative, it has to do with shielding your light, so that they're downcast.
They would be, we're having Colton Brandon is the electrician, and he's gonna be pulling permits It seems to be very current on whatever the standards
As long as
are.
it's on my.
But
Yeah.
I'll make sure that on style is incorporated.
Okay. Going
I have
through.
not heard of that, I've read about it, but I didn't know.
Yep, it basically, the basis premise is that you down shadow, so that you're not having as much light pollution.
Right, right, yeah.
Going through criteria too, character of the area. We've talked about, present site description, exterior lighting, and there's no signage change. There's no natural areas or wildlife habitat being affected. There's no air quality issues, no water quality issues. We did see in the back of the packet in reference to the stream by, I believe it was building 13, that was not a managed stream. And there's no shorelines. Under criteria 3, there is no, not applicable to any changes in traffic. Zoning 4, it meets those, and you're not in the floodway. Anything else you want to add about your project?
Me, no, not, there's nothing really to add, we're just simply taking off the expert and going on. I will say that because we have to start later in the year, waiting for the process of 45 days, we will not be able to do all the buildings this year. So we're targeting getting 3, possibly 4 buildings done. And then we'll have to stop when the weather changes and finish in the next season. But that would be at least 25% of the project.
Okay.
Excuse me, Canadian smoke.
Any other board member questions? No? I make a motion, we close the hearing?
Nobody gets one.
So what was it, was there a hand? What was that, Julie?
I'm sorry, I thought
Oh, we got a
somebody, I
motion on
just
the
wanted to
floor.
say something, but I.
Oh, discussion? Are there any other hands here? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and your patience today.
Okay. Did I hear correctly, this was passed as a motion?
No, we closed the hearing, sir.
You closed it?
Yep.
Okay.
You'll hear from us within the next 45 days.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Appreciate everyone's patience. Had a busy docket tonight. Next, we're going to open a new public hearing for Brookhaven Owners Association. Go ahead, Jared.
This is application 361-12-FHR, amendment number 2. Applicant is Brookhaven Owners Association, and property owner is the same. The application is for the replacement of all flood-damaged sidewalks between the buildings. This project is in the Residential Commercial 1 District. Hearing date is today, June 9th, 2025, 6 p.m. Public postings were at the town clerk's office, town hall bulletin boards, post office, and town website on May 20th, 2025. And in the newspaper of record, the Vermont Journal, on May 21st, 2025. The abutting property owners were notified on May 20th, 2025. George.
Thanks, Jared. Who do we have here to speak to this hearing? Okay.
We get their names.
Jim Leahy.
Property owner and Jim Gorman, contractor.
And so we got 2. Okay, I'll swear you gentlemen into this hearing. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the matter now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury? Okay, tell us about your project.
So this is in response to damage to the pathways that was done from at least the most recent flood, if not the last couple floods. The pathways are all comprised of crushed concrete. Well, they were when they were built. They're now crushed concrete and silt, and so they don't drain at all, especially during mud season, where they really do Vermont proud by being mud for a couple of months. We looked at the cost to scrape them out and replace them with new crushed concrete, and I was surprised when it was like $36,000 to do that project. So we talked to Creative and Jim Gorman here because they had worked with us last year on the pool project where we put in permeable pavers to allow for drainage. I reached out to Kyle to make sure that he was comfortable with that. He thought it was a great idea, so then we came forward with the plan. So I brought Jim here just to refresh your memory as to how that system works and why it's a better system for drainage in the floodway.
Okay, if you remember last year I came before the committee, we talked about permeable pavers and the process behind it. And what we're proposing to do is very similar to what we did for the pool out back. We're looking to take 10 to 12 inches of crushed concrete, silt, stone dust, all materials that retain a lot of moisture, and as you walk on them, and a lot of that is actually emptied out into the parking lot, but it's a squishy surface, comes up through, it's a really messy, if you were to see it, it's, the silt has come up, any of the silt that was in the gravel has all come up to the surface. What we're proposing to do is approximately 1,000 square feet from the parking lot to every entry of all the units at Brookhaven. We're proposing to dig it out, replace it with a compacted aggregate, 7-8 inches, followed by a pea stone, all compacted level after level. Base essentially becomes like a curtain drain or a dry well. Water will dissipate through. Then the 2 3/8 paver, 3 sizes of paver, all interlocking with a tab system. And then what we do is the final layer is a pulverized aggregate. We call it grits, to go in the 1/4-inch seam, which makes this permeable, and not just permeable at the surface, but up to 12 inches down. Gives the water a place to go. We will be assured to get positive drainage away from the buildings out towards the parking lot. We're proposing the edge restraint, which is essentially a mortar base. It's called Gator Extreme. We used it around the pool. It helps with the locking mechanism of the tabs. It just keeps everything there in place. The final layer is the pulverized stone is all swept between the joints. Everything's washed down, and essentially, like I mentioned, just gives the water a place to dissipate and run through. As long as you acquire positive drainage, this system will work for years and years to come. We use it an awful lot around coastal properties and lakefront properties where lot coverage is an issue. Here, I don't think the lot coverage is an issue. It's just more about having a place for the water to dissipate. That's what we're recommending.
Most of the walkways are around 4 feet wide. We're proposing to go down to 39 inches and then bring the beds in, so there's even more natural vegetation. There is a stretch from the walkways down to the pool, which are traditional bricks, not in a permeable fashion, so we're going to pull those up and replace them in the same footprint. So there's about a 20% reduction in coverage in total, and then the permeable system we're pretty excited about. And it's also more durable in a flood. It's more likely to stay in place where you can wash the silt off with a power sprayer, whereas with the stone dust, you have to scrape it up, put new stuff down again.
Questions from the board?
The grade, is it going to go higher or stay the same or
So
go
it's
lower?
the same everywhere, except as you're coming out of the pool up to the walkway, the chief asked to make sure that it's easy to get to that grade for a stretcher on wheels, right? So we will probably raise it by 3 or 4 inches at the beginning, so it's not all the way to the end and then straight up, which is what it is now. So not noticeable in any way, but we'll make it to make sure the chief is happy with it for his.
So overall, the volume actually will decrease because you're going from like basically a 48-inch wide down to around 38?
39.
39.
The volume is going to decrease by about 20%, it's a lot. But it's also cheaper for us to maintain 39 inches as opposed to for the rest, one pass with a snow blower. instead of a bunch. It'll also reduce the amount of little stones that get dragged into the condos, which my wife will be very happy with.
Just, we've talked about Kyle Midash's letter, so received here, or was sent, I should say, on April 16th, which we also received it that day. References, as long as the project maintains the existing contours and does not place any new fill, there's no reason to believe the project would influence water level, heights, velocities, drainage patterns at the site, and that qualifies, and his next statement for his comment letter. I know last time when you came with the permeable pavers, that was an acceptable process. So that's not a new system for this, and you're gonna be reducing the amount in total.
Yeah, I reached out to Kyle before I even put the
Yeah.
permit in place. He said no, it wasn't worth my time.
We do have a map for us, right? That basically shows where all those are. And we have your cross-lace, but just so that we reference for the record, we got Chief Whalen's letter, and he's got 2 conditions: proposed walkway shall be built and maintained in accordance with NFPA 101 and Vermont Fire and Building Safety Codes. Maintenance shall allow for easy use of a loaded structure. Walkway shall be continuous and free of bumps, divots, may cause the removal of a patient to be more difficult. We already referenced that, but just to make sure that you guys are all set with that. Is there anything you would like to add?
Nope, I'll probably see you next year, we have to come back to figure out what to do with the driveway.
Any questions from the board? I make a motion to close the hearing.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
Oh, wait. Oh, you said.
That was
Yeah, I heard
done.
that. Just-
Yep. Any hands stirred?
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. We appreciate your patience tonight.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is the minutes. Or do you want to, Mills last?
Oh, okay. We don't have that fancy paper.
Oh, I'll let you borrow mine, $5. But we didn't change that at the beginning. We can put this off to the next meeting if you want, or do you have a bunch of corrections?
I don't have very many
Okay.
corrections.
Let's just blitz through this and then we'll get to you guys.
While they're getting ready.
Appreciate the patience.
While they're getting ready to do it. Does anybody have anything besides 4, page 4? On page 4, it just, number 5, I said to serve, to serve. I only said to serve once, I think.
No, you started, I remember it.
You stuttered, I look, I wanted to make sure it was right.
On page 5, I just, because I don't know what RGG is under 33.
Oh.
I mentioned it a few times.
I never write out the full names when I'm doing the minutes.
Oh.
Everybody has your own, and you
Yeah.
have your J and L.
Okay. 'Cause it
So
says RGG a few
RGG.
times.
Stand by first.
On page 5 at number 19, just for clarification, George Benson said he doesn't want to lose the ability to use the lift. Spaces for display, is that the parking? Was he referring to the parking?
Yes.
Places?
Yep.
Okay.
So 22 and 36, just be my name is spelled this.
Wait, maybe you should change your name.
We did change your name, John.
Yeah. What's your new
You
name?
weren't here. My name is, first name is Dennis now, too.
You kind of like that. On page 7, I have something very just kind of,
Wait a minute.
sorry, if anybody has anything for that. It's only just,
The pool over? Yeah, I got
yeah,
that.
it's pool over instead of pool cover. That's all, it's just very simple.
Page 7, what number?
18.
Just a pool over, it should be a pool cover. And on 10, I just had the other two, just RGG under 49 and 53.
On number 45 on page 10, it's just a typo.
45.
Yep.
right there.
Well, cars again, Aslo cars.
You were using your German.
Aslo cars.
Where is it?
Number
Number 45.
Aslo.
He was using,
And I use spell check.
use another. thing, here's like that.
On page 11, number 76,
What is that one?
I think it should read, Phil Carter asked if there would be no vehicles around the right side of the building.
Yep. It's
I didn't know I was asking about it.
That was all I had.
You too?
I make a motion, I make a motion we accept them as corrected.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Under other business, we have review bi-weekly letters from the mill as part of their MOU. Welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate your patience.
Yeah, we wanted to
Name,
discuss.
please.
I'm sorry, I'm Brian Porter. I'm on the mill board. And what we wanted to cover 3 projects that we have at the mill. We have a project to do a temporary repair on the rear decks that was started in '23. We're looking tonight to get permission to finish that project. I'll go through that as quickly as I can. And then in discussions with Rose, we offered to bring in Stevens and Associates to talk mostly about our other 2 projects, which would be the reconstruction of the entire deck system, as well as floodproofing the basement. So if I could start with the temporary deck repairs, because it's sort of quickest, and we've discussed this in the past. In July of last year, we signed an MOU, and the MOU said that we could proceed with certain repairs on the rear decks. And this isn't quite what we have right now, this is our plan for the new decks, but it serves me for this evening. And what we were given permission to do was work behind the flood wall. So this space where you don't see anything, that's where the flood wall is. We were allowed to work behind the flood wall as well as above base flood elevation. So that would be just below these yellow lines. The base flood elevation is just below that. Everything that is above that space. In terms of the repair plan that was submitted with our permit application in December of '23. And we've done that work. That work was completed several months ago. The reason that the MOU said you can't do it, so all that's left is work that's here below base flood elevation. And the reason the MOU didn't say we could do that work also is because in April of '24, Cal Madash said, wait a minute, stop, before you proceed, I want to see proof that you are not having any negative impact on floodwaters with your repairs. This isn't the reconstruction, this is just the repairs. There are 9 columns, and the repair entails beefing up the footer and then putting a 6x6 behind the existing column, which in most cases were also 6x6. So putting, I believe it's 9 6x6s in there. He made that request in April of '24. It took us a little while to get our hands around exactly what he was asking. When we realized that this was a sort of a technical endeavor, in May, I think May 6th of '24, we hired Stevens and Associates to help us assess Kyle's need, bid out what ultimately came to be the H&H work to prove that our project would not have a negative impact on the floodwaters. They found H&H contractors. We bid, I believe, 3. We selected that contractor in August. They began work. They said they were going to be done in September.
Yeah, they said it was going to take 8 weeks,
8
and
weeks.
they were 4 months behind schedule.
And your name is?
Serenity Wolf, WOLF, with Stevens and Associates.
So we got the initial report from the H&H engineers showing and proving that our project did not have a negative impact on the floodwaters. That was a good thing. We got that in January. They had to do a sort of a peer review within their group, and they gave us their final letter in February.
Yes, and that was submitted to Kyle, and I believe you have a final sign-off from Kyle as well.
Kyle signed off on March, right around the middle of March, 15th, 16th, something like that.
Yeah, about a month later.
And he signed off in an email that he sent to us, and he copied planning and zoning, where he said he was satisfied with the work, the engineering that was done, and that our project would not negatively impact the floodwaters. So what we're looking for this evening is permission to proceed. And also, what we would really like at some point is that the permit that we applied for back in December of '23, that permit be issued. Now, in the MOU, it talks about the fact that when permits are issued, the MOU is no longer in play. It's no longer essentially needed. But we're not asking for permits for all three of our projects. We're simply asking for a permit to proceed with the repairs. And the reason we want to proceed with the repairs is so that our engineer can sign off that our rear deck system, on a temporary basis, roughly about a year and a half, is safe. That would give our owners the ability to use their decks for the next year and a half. The reason we even conceived of a temporary repair is because we knew it would take a little bit of time to do the deck replacement. We are working on the deck replacement. You know that because we've reported on it, and we brought Stevens and Associates to talk in detail, as much detail as we want to get into, about how that plan, where that plan stands, what we've done and what's left to do for the deck replacement.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just so that we have a clarification, so the permit that you applied for initially was for flood repairs and emergency deck repairs.
We had two applications, one specifically for rear deck repairs,
Okay.
I have a copy of it here, and one for flood repairs. That was before we conceived that we would need to replace the entire deck.
Okay.
So yeah, we're not looking for the flood, we're not ready to submit for a permit on the flood repairs.
Okay.
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
But we are absolutely ready.
So you submitted a separate, just being that we've got, we're multiple years now.
Yep.
Yeah. As that you submitted a separate permit that is recessed on the deck repairs.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the only space that was unable, as it sat with the MOU, was the columns.
I have a copy if you'd like to
Sure,
enter that on
I'll look
record.
at it, I'll give it right back to you.
Sure.
Your guys' file's huge. There's hundreds of pages, so.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
It is.
Which application number is that?
Okay, so,
Should be down at the bottom, 23 dash something?
well, I just pass you the document.
Yeah. Look at it.
23-165.
Okay, so let's spread it out.
And that's the permit number.
23-165.
Yeah.
And that is for the,
That's for the emergency deck repairs only.
Now, if I could,
Yeah.
in the past, the DRB has given us permission to proceed with work. If that could happen this evening, that would be wonderful too. We think that we've got about 3 weeks' worth of work left to finish.
Okay.
A couple of footers to pour and a couple of columns to shore up, and then some structures that sit on those vertically, basically right in the middle of the building, is what's left.
Okay.
All according to the plan and the documents that were submitted with that permit.
Okay. So, what's the feeling of the board? I have an idea. You guys want to hear it?
I think you did.
Okay. Being that you guys have been working in good faith, we do appreciate that. This is my idea, was that we would allow you to continue to do the repairs as necessary. But being that the reason that you were brought in under other business, this board wasn't sure of what permits you were wanting to close or pursue,
Mhm.
and you had multiple applications open, and it's gonna be a lot easier for us. I know that that is not necessarily the most forgiving timeline for work-wise, but if that makes any sense that we've had multiple, at this point, multiple years of paperwork, and to get everything aligned, and so we can wrap things up nicely,
Yes.
and everyone can be happy. Does that make any sense at all?
Our history is, it's been a winding path, for sure.
Right,
But
and,
we all
we've got a
know.
document that says what exactly can and can't do, and
Yeah, yeah.
how we got there, right?
Yeah.
And so, my theory is, concept of how we could pursue would be, allow you to continue the repairs per the plan, and that then you would come back under this specific application number, and we'd have to verify that this has not been closed. Have to go back through some minutes. And then we could close that hearing. Any new information that you may have been providing through the MOU would need to then be put on the record for that hearing. Does that make sense? And then we could close that hearing, and then you could have a notice of decision issued, which would be your permit.
Okay, so you want to issue the permit at the close of the process?
Yep, so that's how all DRB permits proceed, right?
Okay.
Is that the hearings, we open a hearing, collect
Mhm.
evidence, close the hearing, we have 45 days to issue a notice of decision,
Okay,
right? And so, as it sits, if that hearing is recessed, as we haven't been under a separate thing, the MOU, we've been receiving the documentation, right?
Yeah.
So that basically, we need to reopen the hearing. Hey, we've got all this new information. It's already been sort of talked about, but basically we'll have a quick rehash of this conversation of what the emergency deck repairs are. Then we'll close the hearing, and then you'll get your permit. In the
Okay.
meantime, my idea is that to allow you to continue to work, and that by the time this process is complete, you'll probably be all done. I don't know what the board thinks about that. I mean, we've allowed other people to work in the, well, referencing like Shaw's.
I think as far as public safety is smart, to keep it safe.
I mean, Kyle, I know that there's many things that back and forth with Kyle, and he seems to have approved what they have written. I don't have that paper in front of me. I've read many of his emails, but
I have a copy here if you'd want to see it.
I don't need to see it right now. I read every one of your guys' monthly updates and what you guys submit. So what's the board think? I mean, that's the most amicable.
It works for me.
Yep. Okay. So how does that work for you?
That's awesome, thank you.
The one caveat is that this hearing is still open.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wait a second, we'll
We gotta go through the minutes, right?
We'll shoot to get it done as quickly as we can and be in front of you maybe in August. Maybe we'll
Okay.
see.
So that's that aspect of it.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about the rest of it.
Okay, so we brought in our pros to talk about the other two projects. It was our intention that this would be sort of a summary, kind of a quick walkthrough. We are not looking for permits tonight. These are not construction drawings. We haven't gotten that far. But part of it was, we've been submitting these memorandum and they've come from us. And they've been, and we're lucky to have the Malakis. Stacy's a lifelong engineer, she's accurate. But we wanted to demonstrate to you that this work really is being done. We have conceptual drawings, and also maybe to help the DRB understand maybe some of the complexity that has been part of the process.
Sure.
So, I'm
Let's
gonna
hear
turn
it.
it over to Brad.
Fire away.
My name's Brad Sanderson, I'm with Stevens and Associates. As Brian was saying, there's two pieces here. The first piece that I'm gonna look at is the new deck system. The second piece that we'll talk about after is the floodproofing that we're looking at the first floor level. I understand this is basically it's a casual discussion. You guys can ask me questions along the way. I'll try to be quick so that we're not taking up more of your meeting and your time. I know it is valuable. So what we have, these are all the plans that we've been working on. So spring, summer of last year, we started out initially looking at the floodproofing, but then following into the deck system. And what we're looking at is really the front and the back. And as you know, this site is right on top of the river, and the rear of the building is right in the floodplain area. So the deck and the supports clearly impact the river and vice versa. So it's complicated in the sense that you can't look at one without the other. And back to the H&H study, it took a while to get that H&H study in place, and we still will have another level of H&H study for the proposed solution. So we will have another round of that, which will take time. But what we did is we've been working with the board to try to understand how to rebuild the decks to get what they need, and also incorporate floodproofing solutions, and understanding this building also has Act 250 jurisdiction, which also is historic. And so one of the things that we've been doing is trying to understand our program, because we can just put it right back the way it is, but if there's things that we can do to improve, we want to take advantage of those opportunities. But if we start changing things, we also want to understand whether it's going to have a negative or positive impact on the historic characteristic of the building and how the town of Ludlow sees this building when they drive through Main Street. So, we've had a handful of meetings with the board, try to come to a solution on how the form of this might be. And if I pick the back end of the building, it's really very similar, with the exception of the upper two floors where they were connected previously, and now we're just only focusing on giving access to units up there. And on the lower level, there's some connectivity, but it's still really focused on the access to the units out there. It's not about getting, a public walkway through there. On the front side of the building, we wanted to look for ways to maybe even remove deck, and we did that in a couple instances, especially when you start looking at the tower and how that front entrance area works, trying to make it, it's complicated in the sense that there's no easy way to get from point A to point B sometimes in that building. And there's things that jut out, and how do you get around those? And then how do you build them in such a way that, again, that Act 250 and historic is going to have sign off on it. So we met with the board, came up with three different stair towers. On the east end stair, we really didn't come up with anything different. It's pretty similar to what's there, except we're going to also go across, we are proposing to go across the top of the lower level on the far right. In the center, it was a little bit more mixed up, but we have a central tower right here that's focused off the elevator and clock tower area, so that it's more conforming and compact. And on the west end, we have a central corner tower that we're looking to come up, which would eliminate, and this was a goal, would eliminate having access over the top of the cafe. That was one of the things that we didn't really like what was going on there. The feature didn't look good. And then we looked at several different options in these areas in particular, and talked with our historic consultant, because one of the things they don't want, they didn't want us to put something in here that's actually going to be sticking out more and actually be they want to look through the structure and see the building. They don't want to have a new structure that dominates the building. So we came up with some solutions, we followed their recommendations. And then, the other piece of it is the handrails, trying to make a handrail that we can feel safe about, and also look through where we can, as best we can, and actually preserve the look of the building. Again, really focusing on that historic consultant, trying to get their take, and going back and forth with the board, the historic consultant. We are at a point where this is generally the proposed path, but now we need to work our way through the historic preservation office, not just our consultant, and get some sign off on it, because we use their guidance, their history, their intuition on what DHP or Historic Preservation will accept. Now we actually have to go do that. Before we do that, we're actually getting cost estimates done professionally, which we should be getting here pretty soon. We'll be able to submit that to the board, which will help them make sure that we're on a path that they can follow financially. That's a big piece of this. Just real quickly. Yeah. You have any thoughts on that? Any questions?
Questions from the board?
The tower,
Mhm.
the old chimney. Is that stable?
It appears stable to me, yes.
Okay. I mean, it just, you know, it's been there for 100+ years, it's tall, and I just wonder, there used to be a tree
We
growing out
didn't
of
do
the
a
top of
structural
it.
assessment of it, but I did not do a structural assessment of it individually, but I certainly walked around and I've looked up it.
I mean, just obviously, you know, cracks
Yeah,
or
it didn't
shifting
come
or.
out of me as an issue.
Yeah, there used to be a tree growing out of the top of
Is
it.
that right? That's not handy. That's a green building at that point, right?
Phil, at one point, that tower was actually taller. When they redid the building in the 80s, they took about 30 feet off that tower, off that chimney.
Is that right, really?
When it was coal and water, that chimney was much higher, and when they went to oil and gas, that brought that down. It's not in use any longer.
You ever got a drone to kind of circle around and just have a look at it?
We,
Some pictures.
you know, with previous chief, I proposed that he do aerial training on that building. And while he was up there, he cut the tree. He agreed to that. So they were able to set up the aerial truck. You know, they did training on the building, including going on top of that tower. And while they're up there, he cut the tree off for me. So, thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
So we're hoping to keep, getting the cost estimates back, meet with the board. We'll have to, there is another H&H study that has to be done to deal with the supports for the new structure in the back. We have to do that, get Kyle Matt Ash's sign off on that, get sign off on historic before we submit, to the Act 250 District Commission for approval, as well as yourselves. So that's kind of the direction we're going. It's looking, it's gonna take the rest of the year, so we're
I get that. It's not a very fast, nothing's a very fast process anymore. And that this will be a new permit application when you're ready.
And it'd be a separate one, right?
Right, so that would be the only thing on that permit application will be this.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And our expected time frame, just as a reference, we're currently sitting,
I think we were looking at trying to select contractors towards the end of the year, so
Okay.
we're gonna be in the fall probably, would be my sense on this, but it's really gonna be dependent on the H&H study, which is.
Okay.
So I can say,
Yeah.
I've been the one managing the H&H consultant for this project, and the latest proposal that I got from them said it's gonna be 6 months for them to
Okay.
just do their piece of it.
Okay.
As you guys know from all of the projects you're doing here, everyone in Vermont needs an H&H study right now. So it's not that there's a lot to do, it's just the queue is really long right now.
No, I'm just trying to pair this up with, we just talked about the emergency deck repairs, we said 1 to 2 years. And I just want to make sure sounds like based off what you're saying, that pairs up with, of what timeline that you're talking about, so.
I mean, it is entirely conceivable that we might have to close the decks a year from now if we get held up by Act 250 or whatever.
Yeah, that's a very big unknown.
The owners,
that happens.
all the owners know it, and we're just doing our best.
So is there any units that are only accessed from the rear decks?
There are. The 4 easternmost units on the second floor Right,
Okay.
yeah, and they are, their primary access to their units, it's these units right here, there's 210 through 213.
Okay.
Now, we were allowed to finish that work behind the retaining wall, and we had the engineer certify that it was safe.
Okay.
And then we submitted that to the state fire marshal, and he gave us the okay to allow occupancy. That happened last winter.
Okay.
December? November, December. And so, and those owners are, have access, but we still have chains up for the rest of them. We do our best to keep people off. We do our best to remind them on a regular basis, and holler at them when we catch them and all that, and so, yeah.
One thing is, you go through the process, just to make your application easier, I would probably talk with Ben Wayland, our fire chief, when you come up with some more than just conceptual plans.
Right.
So that if he has an input, that when it comes time for you guys to apply, that you don't got a big gotcha or something.
Yeah.
That's his world, to provide input and to serve. I know you'll put out the serve letters. Sure, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to agree, we regularly do that.
Oh, okay.
Anytime we have a question about something here, I go down and ask Ben to come over, he
Yeah.
always comes over.
Yeah, yeah,
So
no, he's very, very much open about that, so, yeah.
We can, also with the state fire marshal, like the location of the stairs, for instance,
Yeah.
we exceeded their egress, what they wanted for egress, and they weren't gonna require us to put that center staircase in, and we wanted to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And they were happy about that, so we have talked to them, but
Okay,
I agree,
perfect.
it's good advice, we will continue.
Yeah, I figured that was probably already in the works, but,
Yeah, the architect has met with the fire marshal.
okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really where, when you come time to at least come before this board, always think, you just listen to multiple hearings, right, as you've been through multiple hearings yourselves, right? Those questions, if you've already thought of those in advance and you have that documentation able to submit when you submit your packet, it makes it for a much smoother, and that's really the end, right? If there's any questions that we might feasibly have, right, or that gotcha, that to serve letter from one entity states that they have a drastically different opinion on something, that you might be able to kind of head that off.
Yeah.
That's the only real comment that I have.
Yeah, well, thank you.
On that. Anything else from the board on this? Okay. So we got flood proofing? Okay.
So, on the floodproofing side, what we're looking at is, our goal is to dry floodproof, the building, at least a large percentage of the building that's commercially occupied right now, which is, really easier to probably see here.
I think it's the next page.
I'm sorry?
No.
Next page. Yeah. So this has been broken up into two halves. So this is the west half, we go down to the center line. Here's the tall chimney, here's the tower, and then here's the east half. The portion that's hatched in this concept is a dry flood-proof area. And then the largest one-story section or two-story section would be wet underneath this alternative. The goal would be to keep the commercial spaces on the left side open and to keep the grill, the 802 brew open. And as part of that, our goal is to dry flood proof that, and that's the way we're currently looking at it, is to put allow a little bit of water to come in, because you're allowed to have up to 4 inches come in for this scenario. I have a pump system that dewaters that area, and so pumps it up above 2 feet above base flood elevation, discharges it above grade, and that'll just keep that area wet. Keep the flood levels below the DFP. The idea is that the rest of that area that's in that lower section would have a durable surface that you can use, and it can get wet, and then that's how you manage the flood proofing there. We've looked at the exterior of the building in this area along the stream. The weight of the building the size and it's all brick masonry. It has weight to sort of withstand a flood event to the base flood elevation and deal with impacts, deal with flow going by. The front side, we actually are looking at trying to organize an entry in that area that doesn't rely on the foundation wall. Similar concept though, where we'd end up with a under drain and a pump system to keep it dry, but we're not relying on the foundation wall because it was difficult for us to manage that. 802 Brew would still have its entrance there. What we do is put in a type of flood shield that would be not automatic. You'd have to, have part of the maintenance plan, you'd have to come in and put it in. And as you march down through the building, you get to the other end, there's still the kitchen that's part of 802 Brew. And then there's this area down here. And then this is the wood wall. This area is basically a wood framed building in that area. There's no real foundation yet because it's internal. And because there's no, this was an older or a newer part of the building. It wasn't done with stone and concrete and brick. We're proposing to take that out and put in a real concrete foundation wall that can handle the flood waters. And so this would still remain dry, and then this would be allowed to be wet. And so that's the concept for that. The understanding that this wouldn't be used other than for, to be determined, but it wouldn't have an occupied commercial space for a restaurant or offices or such. So that's generally the dry floodproofing option, but because we really need to understand what the cost implications of this are relative to like wet floodproofing everything, we're also looking at a wet floodproofing option. Back to getting a professional cost estimator to look at this and look at that so they can compare the two. And then the board can decide how they want to recommend to the owners association. But we're at that stage still where we're just trying to understand. We got an idea, we're trying to get the cost, and now we're going to keep marching. And as you can imagine, it's connected to the deck a little bit. Like depending on how it happens, there's a little bit of overlap and they're connected, but we're trying to work at them separately and
Have you
connect them.
got Kyle's comments on any of the designs yet?
Well, our experience is that, show me the H&H study. So we don't have any feedback from him. We have feedback from the previous work, and it's been our experience in the past where he doesn't give us much. But you can go ahead and speak if you want to that.
Yeah, so the Owners Association hasn't made a final decision with which approach they're taking. And so the expectation is once they made a decision, we would bring that forward. And then at that point, we would understand if there were any implications to the floodplain as well that needed to be considered.
Questions from the board? Thank you for the update. We appreciate it. Do you have any more questions for us?
No, I just was going to comment, you'd asked about timing on some of the other projects.
Yeah.
It's our belief that the owners need to vote on which way we proceed on the floodproofing.
Sure.
We have presented to the owners on the decks, and that we got approval from the owners for the concepts, so that's good. We're moving forward. And so we needed the engineering to be done on both wet and dry, and then we needed the cost estimate wet and dry so that we can talk to the owners about which way we want to go. And we hope to have that information by the end of this summer.
Okay.
We hope to have that decision by the end of this summer.
Okay.
It's our intention to make a recommendation to ownership and open it up and have an open discussion and let fists fly and see how it goes, and then get to work on the building plans for whichever way we go.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And we'll, obviously we'll be continuing to update the board and our
Appreciate that.
our semi-monthly memo, so I'm sure that'll be going on for at least the next, year.
Well, we appreciate them, thank you.
Well, good.
And appreciate the update, and at some point, if you feel that you've got more pertinent information than what's typed down in the letter, you're always welcome back under other business to provide us an update or get feedback on as a preliminary, as like you did on the deck project.
Okay.
We're always here. Other than that, if we can do anything else to help you, just let us know.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for the update. We appreciate it. Anything else under other business? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, folks. We appreciate everyone's patience.